My name is Colby, and I'm a human trafficking survivor. I was 18 years old when I first got into the industry. Like most 18-year-olds, I didn't really have a sense of direction. I didn't know where I was going or what I wanted to do. I had a friend who was working in a strip club, and I thought that it would be a fun gig. So I went in to see her, got hired on the spot. Didn't know what I was getting myself into. During a 3-month period, I was sexually assaulted multiple times. Came into work one night, and there was this beautiful man sitting at the bar. Beautiful, dark-skinned man, big chain dripping with diamonds, very alluring. I noticed that none of the girls were talking to him, but I felt like I should go approach him. I introduced myself. He introduces himself back as Tavon Banks. Tells me that he's an entrepreneur and that he works out of Vegas, and he has a house there in Scottsdale. Later that evening, I end up going to his house. It's a beautiful mansion up on a hill overlooking a great golf course in a very predominant neighborhood. Basically, tells me everything that I want to hear, promises me this and that, tells me he wants to travel with me, and I'm thinking that I'm the most blessed woman in the world. At 18 years old, he invites me to go on a trip to Vegas. I go out to Vegas. I arrive there, a car picks me up, takes me to his house. I go to his house, and there's probably 10 to 12 people, the majority being females. And this is not what I was expecting at all. When I get there, he tells me that I'm now going to be working for him, and I have a boss, per se, another girl that was going to guide me. I barely spent any time with him. I wasn't allowed to look at his friends. I settled in a little bit, and the boss of mine told me that we were heading to New York. I didn't know exactly what all of this would entail, so I went along for the ride. We got on a plane to New York. We end up in Garden City, Long Island, where I am told that I'm now going to be having sex with random men for money. At 18 years old, stuck far, far away from home across the country, I didn't really know what to do. So I went along with it because I was terrified and I was in a foreign place. Getting to New York and figuring out what I was doing was not only terrifying, but it was belittling. All of my dates were set up through him. He was going through an app and bringing the men to our hotel room. The first man that showed up was extremely overweight, had to be in his 50s. Mind you, I was 18 years old and had never done anything like this. I had just been a dancer. I was forced to have sex with him. He paid me, and then I was given the money. I was told to give the money to my boss. This happened multiple times in New York, and it got to a point where I knew that I wasn't safe and I had to leave. So I had told the person in charge of me, the girl in charge of me, that I needed to go home. She called the pimp, Tavon Banks, and let him know, and he said to give me $100 and send me on my way. I had probably 10 to 12 clients at maybe $200-300 each. So I'd made a significant amount of money that I had no access to. I was given a $100 bill and told to leave. I got a cab. I took it to LaGuardia Airport. The cab driver was a gift from God. He understood my situation and knew that something was really bad. Once I got to the airport, I told everybody, all the security, everybody that I could find, that I was trafficked, and nobody believed me. I was sent away from the airport because I didn't have the money to get on a plane and go back home to Arizona. Luckily, the cab driver had given me his phone number, and he had taken me in. He had dropped me off at a gas station until he could figure things out. So I'm sitting there at a gas station with my luggage in, not the best part of New York. We went back to Long Island. He came back for me. He put me in a hotel, and I called my dad. My dad actually paid for a flight for me to get back to Arizona, but it wouldn't be until the following day. So I'm in this hotel, and not a great hotel. I'm hearing screams, I'm hearing knocks on doors, pounding on doors, a lot of drug activity, a lot of very sketchy activity. I was terrified. The next day I got on a plane, went back home, and lost a sense of my identity. I had a very difficult time processing what had just happened. I had a lot of guilt, and I turned to alcohol and drugs. I did end up going back to the strip club because it was what was familiar to me. It's what I knew, and going through something so traumatic, I felt it was my only way. So I continued to dance, and I traveled and went through a series of more traumatic events during that time. I eventually moved out to Colorado to be with family and stayed with my brother for a little bit, and I got on a website, a very well-known website for sugar daddies called Seeking Arrangement. When I got on this website, I met another very gorgeous man out of Houston and promises me the world. I'm going to take care of you. You know, all you have to do is just take care of me back, clean, cook, whatever. Thinking this is great. You know, this is finally my break. This is my out. I can survive now. I get taken out to Houston. He flies me out to Houston and he shows me a great time. We really had a great time. Everything seemed, you know, Prince Charming and too good to be true. About a week into my stay in Houston, he tells me, you know, I've done all this for you. I've given you all of this. Now you have to do something for me. You will be working for me. And I knew immediately what took me back to the Tavon Bank situation. I knew what was happening. So I was trafficked in strip clubs. And so I think that that's now a new way of pimping, is to bring the girls into the clubs and have them, you know, turn tricks or, you know, sexual favors for money in the clubs. He had put me on Percocet and Xanax, blues. I don't remember what they're called. I think it's a form of Vicodin. And if I didn't make enough money, he would withdraw the pills. And so I would go through withdrawals, but still be forced to go to work. I was pressured more and more to make more and more money. So at this point, I was probably, you know, sleeping with or performing different sexual favors for random men in the club 10 to 12 times a night, and, you know, bringing in a significant amount of money. I wanted to get away from him. It was, although I was staying in a high-rise, it was a beautiful place. I knew that this was scary, and it was something that I didn't want to do. So I went renegade, which is, you know, being an independent dancer, not knowing that Houston is one of the most dangerous places to be an independent dancer. And I think that's why a lot of women decide to choose up or go with a pimp. And so I had met another man in the club who had promised me the world. And of course, you would think by now that I would have gotten the gist of it. Ended up living in a really crappy hotel with him, working, same thing, addicted to drugs, told to turn tricks, and there was real no end in sight. From there, he actually sold me to a friend of his because my drug addiction had gotten so bad and I wasn't bringing in enough money. So I was sold to another pimp who was below him. He only had 2 girls. I was sold to him. The drug addiction continued. It just spiraled. My mental health spiraled. I had no sense of self, no self-worth, no value. Eventually was picked up by another pimp named Tony Stacks. He had a beautiful house out here in Katy, and it was in the suburbs. I mean, in a wonderful neighborhood with, you would never guess that this house was full of, you know, 10 girls. The youngest girl was referred to as Baby, and she was just turned 18, which I highly doubt that she was even legal. And I took her under my wing. And her and I thought up a plan to escape. I was living on the 2nd story of this house, and she was downstairs, usually sleeping with him. And I told her one night when he falls asleep, you know, we're gonna get our stuff and we're gonna leave. And the only way out was through the 2nd story window. So we ended up leaving out of the 2nd story window. And I mean, we climbed and scaled. I twisted my ankle. It was bad. I took whatever I had, which was a backpack. It was nothing. No money. We had no money, no drugs, no nothing. Went through withdrawals, we went back to the club, we made a little money, we got a hotel. Now baby was very insecure and she was scared. She didn't like that. She would rather go back to the security of what she had in the house with the girls and with him. So she ended up going back, telling him my location, and he came back and got me. When I came back the second time, there was another girl, she had come out from Nevada, and we had all gotten our hair done. She told him that she wanted to leave that night. And mind you, when you are trafficked and when pimps tell you, you can leave at any time, you're free to go. You're not free to go. It comes with a multitude of consequences, whether it be physical abuse, mental abuse. And Tony was particularly evil. And we had just all gotten our hair done. She had said that she wanted to leave. And he made her sit in the kitchen with all of us surrounding, and it was a lesson of sorts. And he chopped all of her hair off in front of us. And she was crying and she was hurting. And we were then told that because she had betrayed him and betrayed the family, that we had to physically assault her. And so we were forced to actually jump this girl, just because she wanted to leave. Thankfully, this girl was extremely resilient. She found a cell phone, and late at night when everybody was sleeping, she called 911. The police showed up. They took Tony into custody. The rest of us were kind of sitting there like, what do we do? And I mean, the cops were talking to us. We were closed lips because we had been so conditioned to believe that if you turn against him, your life is going to go to hell. And I personally had experienced it living in a hotel. After he was released from jail, he took us all to another very, very bad hotel. There was, I think, probably 8-10 girls at this point. We were staying in a 2-queen bed hotel room. 2 of us had dogs. I had a Chihuahua, including him and his other pimp friends and everybody that came with. There's, at all points in time, about 14 people in this small hotel room. And we were in hiding, essentially. We were still made to work, but we were in hiding. At that point, I figured there was nothing left to lose. I got a hold of a cell phone and I called my dad and I said, hey, this is what's going on. I need out. And my dad's just an angel. He wired me some money. I was able to leave. I went and got it. I got my hotel room, and that was when I broke off. During that period of time between coming to Houston and Tony, I had probably gone through 6 different pimps and left or was sold. And so I went back to being renegade and doing it on my own. And I was living in a very scummy hotel. I don't know if you know the Red Roof Inn. Yeah, it was a sketchy hotel. And my only means was, of course, not going back to the club because if you don't have a pimp in Houston, you get jumped, you get robbed. You have to have a pimp for security. It's not just, I'm working as a dancer. You have to have that protection. What I knew, this was in the day of Backpage and Eki and all of these sketchy sites that you can basically bring in your Johns or your tricks to your room. And so that's what I did to survive, was I would set up dates and they would come into the room and I would have sex with them, sometimes for 100, maybe even less than that, just to survive. I struggled to get out of that mentally. It was really difficult. I eventually met my ex-husband, who was a police officer. I'd gone back to the club, and I didn't know that he was a police officer at the time. And I had told him a bit of my story, and he took me out of the club, and he rescued me. I was with him for 8 years, and I do owe him a great deal for saving my life. We had 2 wonderful kids together. It was great. After we had divorced, I had gotten into, we had divorced in 2019. It was finalized in 2020, and the pandemic hit. I had no job experience. I was a stay-at-home mom and wife for the 7-8 years we were married. And before that, I was trafficked. I was a dancer. The adult industry was all that I knew. So when the pandemic hit, OnlyFans became a huge thing. And naturally, of course, I need to provide for my children. It's a safe way of doing it, you know, or I thought was a safe way of doing it. I'm in my own home, I'm safe. That is not the case. The detriment that comes with OnlyFans, while the money is great and it's so highly glamorized that you can just make this quick money and this and that, you're selling a piece of yourself every time. Every time you make a video, every time you have a bizarre request, it stays with you. It sticks with you, and it's long term. It doesn't end. So now I am a certified trauma coach, and my goal is to get girls, young girls, maybe inspire them to not go down the path that I went down, to avoid the trauma, to do better, and to not get into OnlyFans. It's so unbelievably glamorized, but what they don't tell you is the seedy underbelly and everything that you go through, the constant verbal abuse, being called a whore every day, being demeaned, and it's 24/7. This job doesn't stop. You know, you get the most of your clients and the most of your one-on-one shows after midnight, and so you're up all hours of the day, and it's sex, 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 sex. Your relationship during this period with intimacy is completely altered, and so getting out of it, you know, you meet somebody and you have this connection with them, but unfortunately you still feel like you're performing. And so there is a disconnect with intimacy. I think that's the hardest part of the healing, is trying to establish healthy relationships and understanding and finding somebody who understands your boundaries and respects them. Because if my story can prevent one woman from going through what I went through, then it's worth sharing. And I know there's a lot of risks involved in sharing my story. It's a dangerous avenue to go down. However, I think that people need to be more aware that this is happening every day in your neighborhoods, in your communities. It's so often that this happens, and it's rarely reported on the news. Whether it be child trafficking, human trafficking. It's just such a downfall, and I need to bring awareness to the situation. I want to prevent somebody from going through the trauma that I went through.